Hello, I'm Kevin Kosar. I edit the site Beverages, Books, and More. Today's topic of discussion is what's commonly called mocktails. These are drinks that look a lot like cocktails, but have very little or no alcohol in them. These mixed beverages have been around for a very long time. The Shirley Temple, for example, was likely invented in the 1930s. But today, non-al, low-al, whatever you want to call these kinds of drinks, they're becoming very popular. To help me discuss this topic and to figure out why these things are becoming so ubiquitous, I have with me Derek Brown. He's a man who needs no introduction, but nonetheless, he's going to get one. Derek's accomplishments are many. He has created famous bars such as the Passenger and the Columbia Room in Washington, D.C. He's won awards for his wizardry and drinks making, and he's served as the chief spirits advisor to the National Archives Foundation. Derek has also co-authored two books. Speaking of which, right below this video, you can see information about them. These days, Derek Brown is running Drink Company, and he's also running the organization Positive Damage Incorporated. He's a certified wellness coach, and he teaches mindful drinking, and he hosts the Mindful Drinking Podcast. Derek, thanks for taking the time to chat.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, Kevin.
Well, I was in Tampa Bay, Florida very recently, and I was lucky enough to be taken to a really nice restaurant. And of course, they had a large wine list and a large spirits and cocktail list, but there was also a substantial non-al mixed drink list. I'm seeing this more and more. I've seen it here in Washington, D.C. I've seen it up in New York City. Obviously, I just mentioned Florida. I've seen it in my home state of Ohio. Am I imagining a trend or is this really happening?
No, it's really happening. It's actually very exciting because we've seen just a really growing amount of restaurants adopting non-alcoholic and low alcohol products, both in terms of making cocktails, having non-alcoholic beers, even non-alcoholic wines in some cases. So it's been really cool. It's not your imagination, it's real.
Yeah, I should say, I mean, that brand you mentioned beer, the Athletic seems to have exploded. It's everywhere, in shops and home delivery and the whole bit. Uh, so what's driving this? What factors can account for this sudden appearance of this? I mean, we've had non-ale beers since I was a grocery boy in Ohio in the 80s.
They probably were not as good as the ones today because I don't know if you remember the old, I'm not going to name names here. Some of them have reformulated since and are much better, but there were a number of brands that were just, I when I started bartending, one of the chefs didn't drink alcohol, and so he had a six pack of, I think it was Buckler in the back of the lowboy refrigerator, and every now and then I'd get one for him, but nobody ordered them, and when they did, I felt sorry for him because it just did not taste very good. I said I wasn't going to name names, and I named one, so I apologize to Buckler if you've reformulated and you're better now, but back then it's terrible. So it's really exciting now. Not only do you have like Athletic, which is one of the top craft breweries in the country, producing a wide range of non-alcoholic beers like IPAs. You have really even smaller craft beer companies that are making these really specialty, whether it's like a everything from a Kolsch to a stout. And it's really cool. I mean, you have lots of options and they all taste good. That's the good news.
Yeah, I mean, I know personally the non-al drinks have begun to appeal to me just because, hit 50 years old and you got tons of responsibilities and your body's changing and it's harder to keep the calories off. And so, the ability to just go have something that's really delicious and that just is attractive to look at, but isn't going to slow me down or leave me feeling groggy in the morning. That appeals to me. But is there something else out there, or is this kind of like the coffee revolution we had, where people just didn't have the concept that non-ale mixed drinks and beverages could be good, and now that they're seeing it, they're going, "Wow, let's do this."
Well, and I feel like I realize now in the last question as I skipped the question because I got so excited about talking about non-alcoholic beer. The reason for adoption is exactly what you're talking about. A lot of people are focusing more on their health and wellness, and that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's becoming, focused on, being the most fit, optimal person they can be. We just want to get up in the morning, right? And be able to like go to work and do the things that we have to do. And we also want to be social and connect with other people. So I think that health and wellness is a huge driver. I think the fact that there is that there has been an uptick in the quality matters because now they're matching this desire to be, for better for you products with actually good products. And I think that that matters. Um, it is important to note that there was already about 25% of the population that didn't drink alcohol. So for the longest time, they had to do these non-alcoholic beers, or they'd have to have these kiddie mocktails, that were kind of tucked away at the end of the menu, a Shirley Temple type drinks that were sugary sweet, but not adult sophisticated beverages. And that was a real problem. So a lot of people just opted for soda water, instead. So there was already this part of the population that didn't drink alcohol. And now there's a whole group of people, who are kind of switching back and forth. And that's exciting too. People are doing things like zebra striping, right? Which is when you have a non-alcoholic drink, a drink of alcohol, non-alcoholic drink, and that kind of keeps you in this space where you're not getting too intoxicated, and you can really connect with other people in which I think is the ultimate goal of all of this is to sit down with other people and have a great connection.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I take your point. It was, in economic terms, it really was an underserved market. They were those people were kind of the afterthought. If you ran a place, it was like you had sodas on tap. Um, you had, St. Pauli NA and you Buckler and these sorts of things, but you didn't really think too much about them. They were kind of written off as consumers, and now there's this realization of, wowza, these people want good stuff.
That's right. And some of this stuff is really premium. I mean, the prices are not cheap. And whenever I'm doing a program, I do a lot of programs throughout the United States. People are willing to pay between $15 and $20 for a great non-alcoholic cocktail. And a lot of the products that are, that they're using in it, whether it's a non-alcoholic bourbon or a non-alcoholic Amaro that, doesn't really conform to like a standard category. It's like this whole new product, like Pathfinder as an example. Those are not inexpensive products, and they're in some cases distilled products. So they're going through similar processes to what bourbon or what other Amaros are going through. So I think, they're worth it just in the sense that they cost as much, but also the quality is there and people are willing to pay for it.
hmm So, when I introduced you, I mentioned mindful drinking, and you dropped that term also. For folks tuning in who haven't heard it before, what is mindful drinking, and how does it fit in with the whole non-al, low-al drinks movement?
Right. Well, this is the way I define mindful drinking. I say that it's drinking or not drinking in relationship to your goals and values. Whether that's health or otherwise. So ultimately, it's about an intrinsic decision that we make. We've heard lots about responsibility messaging, right? And I think that that's good too, right? We're telling people drink less and, be careful about drinking and driving and things like that. Those are important messages, but I think sometimes they're missed on people, right? And it can become white noise, especially to younger people. What I'm really saying with mindful drinking, a lot of other people are saying, is that let's tie this to your goals and values. What is really important to you? And let's make a decision based on that. Ask yourself why you drink. Right. So that way, I'm never telling people you should drink this much, or you should drink that much. You should only drink no and low alcohol cocktails. You should drink nothing. What I'm saying is that sometimes through peer pressure and social conformity, we end up drinking a lot more than we intend to. Right? It's become an important part of many rituals. In fact, it's kind of permeated the whole society to the point where you can get wine during yoga, and you could get cocktails at your movie theater, and it's not to say that that's bad. I want people to have options and choices, absolutely, but I want them to have options and choices, right? I want them to be able to go to places and have delicious adult sophisticated beverages and not just alcohol, right? So I went to a party or event last night, and I went up to the bar and asked them if they had non-alcoholic beer, and they didn't, but they had a Corona and Stella Artois, and what else was there? And Sierra Nevada, all of which have non-alcoholic products. So it would have been very easy for them to add it. So I've just sat in the corner with soda and lime, and I had a good time because I was going to have a good time anyway. Um, but I didn't have a beverage in hand that was the one that I wanted. So it's an easy thing to do, but I it's sad that not everyone's doing it. It's funny because earlier when I talked about the fact that this is growing and it has grown exponentially, um, we're still at the beginning of the beginning, right? So that there is this larger adoption, especially among like mid-tier and higher end restaurants, but we haven't seen it permeate everywhere. Yeah, and so we really want to push that message out there. So mindful drinking is about having options, and it's about tying those options to your goals and values. That was a long-winded answer, but there you
No,
go.
no, no, it's great. That's great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Own the drinking and make it serve you versus vice versa.
Yeah.
Um, so gotta ask. Long ago, I attended bar, and so I've got to ask this for the bartenders out there. How does the popularity of these low-al and non-al drinks affect the work of a barkeep? I mean, I've started stocking some of this stuff at home, and it's like, okay, I got to find additional shelf space for one. And is it requiring like bar professionals to learn more about food or to adopt new tools or techniques? And is it going to require more refrigerator space? I'm interested in that kind of prosaic stuff, which you no doubt are deep into the weeds on since you're a professional consulting with the hospitality and restaurant industry.
Yeah, there's all kinds of new considerations. I mean, for one, some of the products don't last as long. Alcohol is good at a lot of things, and one of the things it's really
Oh.
good at is as a preservative. So if you have a product that is not preserved with alcohol or not preserved with all the sugar, then all of a sudden you have to, either bring in other preservatives or say it's only going to last for 3 to 6 months in some cases. So that's a concern, new shelf space, new education around it. Um, I think that's all true. That does bring in a sort of new factors for a bar or restaurant. But it's with that comes new opportunities, right? And this happens all the time. This is not a new thing. When I started bartending, um, and I don't know when you started bartending, but I think we're the same age, Kevin. I think I was making, at best maybe a Cosmo and a Appletini every now and then, but it was mostly like highballs, okay? And then all of a sudden, there was this craft explosion, which I became enamored with myself, and we were learning how to make aviations and sazeracs, and really weird stuff for the time. Now it's totally normal, and I had to learn about rye whiskey and bitters. So that was just one step in the way. And then all of a sudden, tequila and mezcal became popular, especially mezcal. So we had to learn about mezcal. And so I think along the way, there's always new things that a bartender has to learn and account for. And we tend to think of the bar as this, thing that's stuck in time and will always be, but it's just changing um, year to year. And the style of bartending has changed so much since I started bartending. And I'm excited for that because I think it's mostly been for the better and better options. But this is just an extension of that. So I hear what you're saying, and I do think that I feel bad because I do, as a bartender, it sucks to have to like learn all this new stuff and unstock and restock your fridge, but it's part of the job.
Yeah, absolutely. Meet the evolving market. You can either complain about it or you can take a positive attitude, as you say, and look for the opportunities
Yeah.
to show customers things they haven't seen before. Um, well, I've referenced the mixed drinks in particular. Um, Folks watching this video who are not bartenders may wonder, like, how hard is it to make these non-al and low-al drinks at home? Is it doable? Is it as simple as, making the gin and tonics that they may be used to stirring up, or does it require them to up their skills a bit more?
Well, Kevin, here you're asking me to go against my own economic interest here. I wrote a book called Mindful Mixology, a comprehensive guide to no and low alcohol cocktails for $39.95 from Rizzoli. So I suggest you buy that. But honestly, it's really easy to make non-alcoholic cocktails. It's not hard. And you don't have to look, and don't tell the brands this either. You don't have to buy all this, these products. I think there's lots of delicious ones, and they might have a couple shortcuts in there. Like, for instance, if you buy non-alcoholic gin, that's an easy trade-in for a gin and tonic, right? So you don't have to think about it too hard. But if you like the act of making cocktails, you can use apple cider vinegar, fresh citrus, salt tincture, and aquafaba, which is really just chickpea water, to make an absolutely delicious sour, right? All that stuff
Huh.
costs pennies and it tastes sophisticated. I'm not talking about a drink that's syrupy sweet. And so I think that there are options out there, and I like that. I mean, I want to get people to try all these great non-alcoholic products, but I also want them to recognize, yeah, you can make it delicious cocktails at home that are quite simple. I'll tell you one that's just so easy, and I'm surprised more people don't serve it or make it. Espresso and tonic.
Hmm. No
It's
kidding.
a really delicious drink, and I think it's starting to have like a little bit of a revival. But it's a really easy drink to make. Obviously, you can get an espresso if you can make it at home, or you get it at any restaurant, and just add tonic water to it, and all of a sudden, boom, you've got a non-alcoholic cocktail.
Wow, is this something that's like an ounce of espresso and like 5 ounces of tonic? I'm just trying to get a picture of what this ratio might look like.
Yeah, I think it's usually I guess 1 to 2 ounces of the espresso, and then
Mhm.
4 ounces of tonic would probably be a good mix that I would start with.
Wow.
But the thing is that it brings up a really good question that I address in my book, not to oversell my book here, but what then is a cocktail if it's not alcohol, right? And so I try to really answer that question by looking at the characteristics that make up a cocktail, the sensory characteristics. It should be have an intensity of flavor,
Hmm.
right? You never really accidentally drink a cocktail. Like, you taste it, you know immediately that's a cocktail, right? It has that piquancy or that bite, sometimes called stopping or slowing power to it, right? It makes you kind of contemplate the drink. Or if you're taking a shot of it, it makes you wince your face for sure. Um, and then it's got this length that's taken up by not sugar or juice, right? So I can't just say I'm making a drink of sugar and juice and that's a cocktail. It doesn't work. And then there's a certain texture to it as well. It is not water or iced tea. So I think, when you look at those principles, you can create cocktails around it using almost any ingredients. And I think that that's the fun of it, right? I hope people that are watching this, or the people who listen to you, are going out there and experimenting with it, because it should be ultimately fun. Cocktails should be fun.
Yeah, and I guess you're the pro, but I would throw in that, when I use the word cocktail, I also think it's visually striking. It's not just a clear glass tumbler with a beige liquid in it. Like there's more going on there, that shows the craft of it having been assembled, basically.
I think that's an excellent addition. I do think you drink first with your eyes. So it should be, put it in a red Solo cup, and it's just not as fun as putting it in, a really beautiful
Oh God. Oh, that's a jarring image. Well,
glass.
with that funny remark, let me thank you, Derek, for joining me today and telling us about what's happening out there, how to think about it, and giving us a little spur to give it a shot.
Yeah, my pleasure, Kevin. Thank you for talking with me today.